Alright, so welcome back to more explanations on cards. Deeper explanations on cards. This would technically be part 4. So let's continue on where we left off. So now we've got the general store and the shopkeeper. And the general store is a grain production card, and the shopkeeper is one of those blue governance cards. Okay, so in order to build the general store, you're going to need to pay a resin and a pebble in order to put it into your town. And so since it is a grain production card, you are going to play this when you play it and when the 2 seasons arise. So what you get is you'll gain 1 berry, and then if you have a farm in your city, you'll gain 1 additional berry. So if you have a farm, you'll get 2 berries. That's pretty cool. I like that card a lot, especially if I have a farm around. Then, if you have a general store, you can play the shopkeeper for free. If you don't have a general store, you're definitely going to have to pay the cost of 2 berries in order to play it. Now, this one's pretty interesting. Whenever you play a critter, you're going to gain 1 berry every time you play a critter. So that's what this one allows you to do. So gain 1 berry after you play a critter. That's pretty cool. You won't get it before you play the critter. You'll get it after you play the critter. That's pretty powerful. So it's kind of like the historian, where you get to draw a card after you play a critter, or in construction, basically. But this one is just for the critter, and you're going to get a berry, and you're not going to get a card. So that's pretty cool, though, nonetheless. So these two working together can give you a lot of berries, for sure. And they're each worth a point at the end of the game. So let's continue on. Alright, next we've got the courthouse and the judge. Yes, the judge is a turtle. And they're both blue governance cards too, as well. Okay, so in order to build the courthouse, you're going to need 1 twig, 1 resin, and 2 pebbles in order to build in your town. It's also worth 2 points at the end of the game, and the judge is also worth 2 points at the end of the game. Now, this is a unique construction, and that's a unique critter, so you can only have 1 of each of these in your town anyway. So, basically what this does, the courthouse, is you'll gain 1 twig, or 1 resin, or 1 pebble after you play a construction card. So that's pretty powerful for construction cards, so getting this early on in the game could be very helpful after you play construction cards. Awesome, right? And then if you have a courthouse, you can play the judge for free. If you don't have a courthouse, you are definitely going to have to pay. You're definitely going to have to pay, and the payment is 3 berries in order to have a judge in your town. Now, this ability here is when you play a critter or construction, you may replace 1 resource with another resource of your choice. So that's pretty useful. If the card construction or critter required something you didn't have, you could pay something else instead. Like, even if it was a critter, let's say the critter was 3 berries, but you only had 2 berries, but you had some twigs, you could exchange 1 of those berries for a twig instead, and pay 2 berries for the card, for instance. And if it was a construction card and it required, I don't know, a pebble, and you didn't have a pebble, but you had tons of extra resin, you could pay a resin instead of a pebble in order to build the card if the judge was around to assist you on that in your town. So those 2 cards are pretty powerful, especially if you can get both of them. Alright, moving on. Next we have the cemetery and the undertaker. Now the cemetery is a red destination card, and the undertaker is one of those tan traveler cards. In order to build the cemetery, you need 2 pebbles. It's also worth 0 points at the end of the game. The Undertaker requires 2 berries to play, and of course, it only gives you 1 point at the end of the game. And if you have a cemetery in your build, in your town, you can play the Undertaker for free. But don't forget to put the Occupy token on the cemetery. Now, if you place a worker here in the cemetery, once again, the worker stays here permanently. So you'll lose 1 worker if you put it here in the cemetery. So you should probably only play this during the last season, which is autumn. Alright, so what does it do if you put a worker here? Well, you'll reveal 4 cards from your deck. From the deck, you'll reveal 4 cards from the deck or discard pile and play one for free. Wow, that's powerful. So reveal 4 cards from the deck or discard pile. If you knew what cards were put in the discard pile, especially if they were yours, you might know what's in the discard pile and be like, oh, I would definitely want to play that one for free. So that could be very useful. But you don't know what's coming from the deck for sure, and you're going to discard the other cards regardless of the case. But you get to still play one for free, so that could come in handy, of course. And then if you have the Undertaker in your town, 2 workers can be placed in the cemetery. All right, now let's go with the Undertaker. It's a one-time used card because it is a Tan Traveler card. When you play this card in your town, you'll discard 3 cards from the meadow. Then you'll replenish the meadow, meaning you'll put 3 cards back in the meadow, and then you'll draw 1 card from the meadow. So that's kind of interesting. That could come in handy. It could, maybe. And then, of course, it does unlock the second cemetery, which is what I mentioned earlier. And so that's how those 2 cards work. Pretty cool. Let's continue on. Okay, next we have the farm, finally. And the farm is a little different with the pairing. The pairings are a little different than the farm is. So we actually have 3 cards to consider here for this pair. Or should I say, a pair, or triple pair, or whatever the case may be. Okay, so in order to build the farm, you need 2 twigs and a resin. And it's one of those green production cards, so you'll gain a berry from your farm when you play it and during the 2 seasons of spring and autumn. Now, or should I say when you're preparing for those seasons. Now, it's also worth a point at the end of the game. And you'll notice at the bottom here, it says you can either play the husband or the wife for free. So you have the option of either playing the wife for free or the husband for free. It's true, the husband is more expensive than the wife is. But you don't get the ability if the husband is played first. So let's just go over the wife first, because the husband is a little different, okay? All right, so let's say you decide to go ahead and play the wife for free. Otherwise, it would cost you 2 berries if you didn't play it for free. But let's say if you have a farm, and then you decide to play the wife for free. Well, the wife is going to give you 2 extra points at the end of the game, and then it also may share a space with a husband, meaning that once you play the husband, you can put the husband and the wife on the same space, meaning this utilizes your town very well, because instead of having these 2 cards take up 2 slots, you're having these 2 cards just take up 1 slot in your town. That's awesome, right? Oh, that is awesome. But that's not all the wife does if it's paired with the husband. If the wife is paired with a husband, it's worth 3 extra points. So this is actually worth 5 points if you have the husband and wife, which makes sense, right? All right, so let's say that was the case. You did decide to play the wife for free. That means later on, if you were going to play the husband, you have to pay 3 berries to play him. If you played the husband first, then you wouldn't have to pay the 3 berries. But here's the reason why you would want to play the wife first. Okay, so it is worth 2 points at the end of the game, but then it is one of those green production cards. So when you play it, you'll gain 1 resource if paired with a wife, and you also have to have at least 1 farm in your city. So if, for instance, you played the farm and then you played the husband for free, you wouldn't be able to activate this green production card because it wouldn't be paired with your wife yet. And then later down the road, if there was still a season like autumn around, for instance, and you played the wife and you paired him with the husband, then you would finally get to activate that ability during the preparing for autumn season, for instance. Which is why it's better to play the wife, if you can, before the husband, because then you get that ability too. So that is something to note. And gaining 1 resource is better than having to pay 1 extra berry. Because if you ask me, I'd rather have an extra pebble around. But that's just me. Now that's the case. Either way, both of them are pretty powerful and very useful to have. But you also have to have the farm too. It's not just the wife you need in order to activate this ability. You also require the farm as well. So that is something to note. And so that is a nice pairing of those two particular cards. Let's see. Let's continue on. I think we still have... hold on. Okay. We'll continue on in the next video.